Efron refuses to give up on independent film. But for how long will independent film stick with him? You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of At Any Price.
That foot is made of lead. It's gonna get you to NASCAR.
You're not gonna make it in the big leagues. Take the land. It's in your blood.
Don't you lose what my daddy started.
We've been investigating you. We got a tip. Who gave you this tip? We need to visit your fields.
Who could have done this? You didn't talk, did you?
Tell me who it was.
You ruined me. If they find out, we'll lose everything.
It's almost refreshing to see that independent films like this are still being made. There's no big-name actor here slumming it in the hopes of getting some awards nominations. There's no subject matter ripped from the headlines here, or filmmakers trying to ride the coattails of a cause du jour. Instead, there's just Ramin Bahrani, years after his 15 minutes of fame being a Hollywood it boy, quietly continuing on with his career. See, Bahrani burst onto the independent film scene back in 2005 with Man Push Cart, which told the story of a Pakistani rock star who comes to America and ends up selling coffee and bagels on the streets of New York City. No less than Roger Ebert, who tragically passed away last week, took note of Bahrani and put Man Push Cart on his list of top 10 movies that year. In 2007, his second film, Chop Chop, was also a hit on the festival circuit, and again, Ebert took notice, not only saying it was one of the best films of the year, but of the entire decade. And the very next year, he made Goodbye Solo, which also impressed critics. But not every festival darling gets a Hollywood happy ending. Instead, since 2008, Bahrani has only made one short film and a music video. But now he's back on the horse, or more accurately behind the camera, to tell another story of a man's struggle against the world. However, this time, instead of focusing on immigrants, as his parents were from Iran, he has decided to shift his attention to a third-generation Iowa farmer. That farmer is played by Dennis Quaid, who along with Zac Efron and Heather Graham are the film's biggest stars. But truth be told, all three have seen better days in terms of their careers and work the indie circuit because they can't get lead roles anymore in the big studio pictures. But as many of you have been asking me these days, isn't it enough just to make a good movie? Well, occasionally it is, if enough people take notice. I really didn't want to see this movie. I was really dragging my feet to go. I didn't find it at all inspiring or interesting. But that said, when I saw the film, I was pleasantly surprised at how good it was, how solid it was. It didn't blow me away, but it made me take notice of Bahrani, the director. And I think that that's an important lesson in and of itself, because I think a lot of times in today's media-heavy world, I think aspiring filmmakers and independent filmmakers feel, oh my God, if I don't grab all the headlines and knock it out of the park on my first shot or right away, I'm never gonna get a career. And I think that, of course, it's great to be able to knock it out of the park and get those headlines, but it's also, if you can just get on base or get to the next base, that's an accomplishment of itself. And I feel that, as I talked about in the open, I think Bahrani wasn't making commercial choices, and as you could see, he wasn't getting anywhere despite critical praise. He wasn't getting anywhere in the industry, and I think he's finally kind of, smartened up and decided, I guess I have to try and play the game at least a little bit by going more commercial, and he does here, and I think that it's going to help him go forward. I mean, if I were a studio executive, I would take him more seriously, and I think he shows that he can deliver a more mainstream picture that has playability. And also, interestingly, the film, it's a very simple film because it's an independent film. It's made very cheaply, and that's also another, to its credit, that's hard to do. But it reminded me of two recent films. It was kind of like a mashup of A Place Beyond the Pines and Promised Land. And I almost feel like this movie achieves what both those movies tried to do better. And maybe it's because of its simplicity. Both those other films are very flashy, particularly A Place Beyond the Pines, and I really enjoyed A Place Beyond the Pines. I gave it a good review. But I think that it's not getting good reviews from other people, and I think it's because you really have to kind of work with the film to get its message. It's not going to just come to you. And I feel that At Any Price maybe gets the father-son dynamic message a little better, but maybe you do have to work with that as well. And again, I don't want to get anyone's expectations too high, because maybe then you won't enjoy the film as much as I did, but I did like it. And now, as for the actors in it, we've discussed Bahrani, the director and writer, but as for the actors, Zac Efron, of course, is getting all the publicity, but I just, I respect Zac Efron. I respect that he's trying to up his game by starring in independent films like this and The Paperboy, but I just don't know if he has the acting chops to pull these kind of roles off. I think, you know, he has some racing scenes in this film, and it just made me say, like, think to myself, you should have taken that speed racer role, Efron. I think he would have really excelled in it. But I think, so I don't know if he has the acting chops to survive in the independent film world. He doesn't hurt the film, but he's not particularly impressive. The film, by far and away, though, is Dennis Quaid's movie. I was really impressed with Dennis Quaid's work here. We've been talking a lot on this channel, and a lot of people have been talking in general about Matthew McConaughey and how he's kind of like coming into his own later on in his career. And maybe Dennis Quaid, maybe Matthew McConaughey will open a door for older actors, and Dennis Quaid can walk through it after him, because I was really impressed with his performance and his willingness to put himself out here for this role. I haven't seen anything like this from Dennis Quaid before, which was nice. So would I rush out to find it at any price? Would I hunt it down to see it in theaters? No, I don't think that it's that good, but I think that I would definitely try and see it at some point. You know, if it does happen to be playing near you, I think it's worth a look. It has some beautiful shots of Iowa, great cinematography. And if it comes, I think it's a great rental. I think this is one of those movies where you rent it and you're like, wow, that was really pleasant, and then you think to yourself, I should have seen it in theaters. And maybe you shouldn't have, though. But it's still very good. I'm hoping that it advances Bahrani and Quaid's careers, because I think they deserve it. I think they did a really nice job. So those are my thoughts on At Any Price. If you've seen the film, be sure to share your own thoughts down below. And as always, thanks for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing and check out these other videos. Bye.